Devastation. That's the word, isn't it? That quiet devastation that creeps into anxious-avoidant relationships like a slow fog, wrapping its cold, damp fingers around the throats of two people who once believed they were destined to save each other. Yes, friends, that's the territory we find ourselves wandering into today. Anxious-avoidant relationships, why they only heal through shadow work. And if you think this is just about getting your partner to finally text back on time or to, heaven forbid, plan a date night, oh no. This, my dear listener, is a far murkier, far more treacherous realm. And I dare say, it's the only road that leads to real freedom. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the battlefield of anxious-avoidant dynamics, allow me to paint the scene. On one side, you have the anxious soul, frantic for closeness, longing for reassurance like a parched traveler in search of water. And on the other side, the avoidant, master of distance, architect of solitude, clutching independence as though it were the last raft on a sinking ship. And oh, how they find each other. Magnetized by mutual dysfunction, convinced the other holds the missing piece to their salvation. But what they are really holding, you see, is a mirror. Because here's the secret no one wants to tell you. The anxious is terrified of being abandoned. The avoidant is terrified of being consumed. And together, they form a perfect Ouroboros of unmet needs, each triggering the other's deepest fears in an endless loop. And what do we humans do when terrified? Why? We point fingers, of course. You're the problem, we say. If only you would change, all would be well. But here's the rub. In this game, both people are right. And yet, both are entirely wrong. You see, anxious and avoidant partners are exquisitely skilled at identifying each other's flaws while remaining blissfully ignorant of their own. It's almost poetic how perfectly they expose the unhealed wounds the other has spent a lifetime avoiding. But this is precisely why shadow work is not optional in these relationships. It is mandatory. Without it, you're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Surface-level adjustments, learning to count to 10 before sending the third follow-up text, granting your partner more space, those are charming little tricks, but they won't stop the ship from sinking. No, the work must go deeper, into the shadow. And what is the shadow? The shadow is that glorious, dreadful part of you that you have spent years, perhaps decades, stuffing into dark corners. The parts of yourself you decided were unacceptable, unlovable, dangerous. For the avoidant, it is vulnerability, neediness. That child within who once reached out and was met with rejection, who now keeps his hands firmly in his pockets and avoids eye contact. For the anxious, it is self-reliance. The part that says, I can soothe myself, I can stand alone. But why bother with that, they think, when hypervigilance and emotional pursuit kept them just barely tethered to the caregivers who always seemed one step out the door. And now, these two wounded creatures find each other. The avoidant marvels at the anxious partner's bottomless hunger for closeness. How exhausting, they think. Meanwhile, the anxious partner stares in disbelief at the avoidant's emotional distance. How cold, they whisper. But here's the tragic twist. What they resent in each other is precisely what they have disowned in themselves. I once knew a man, quite avoidant indeed. Stoic, composed, the very picture of self-reliance. His partner, however, was the embodiment of anxious longing, forever seeking, forever asking, "Do you love me? Will you stay?" And do you know what happened when she finally started to heal? When she dared to build her own inner security, to stop chasing, to fill her own cup? He found himself unnerved, lost almost. For without her constant pursuit, he was forced to confront the ghost he'd kept locked away, his own abandoned need for connection. And as it turned out, His independence, while impressive, had always been built upon running. Likewise, I watched the anxious partner wrestle with her own unraveling. She had long fantasized that if only he would come closer, share more, love better, she would finally feel at peace. But when he did, when his heart cracked open in clumsy, halting vulnerability, she recoiled. For the first time, she saw his humanness, his flaws, his fears, and it terrified her. Because if he was no longer her emotional stronghold, who would protect her from herself? And so, the game revealed its final hand. There is no healing unless both agree to meet their shadows. The avoidant must dare to step into dependence. The anxious must taste independence. They must trade their worn-out scripts for something terrifyingly new. But beware, shadow work is no polite afternoon tea. It's a bloody, tear-stained excavation. You will not simply rearrange your quirks and emerge with a more attractive dating profile. You will dig up your forgotten parts, dust them off, and reintroduce them to the world. And not everyone will applaud. Least of all your partner. Because, let me be dreadfully clear, when one person in the dynamic begins to heal, it threatens the status quo. If the anxious partner stops over-functioning, the avoidant will have to lean in, to seek closeness, to fill the space she no longer occupies. And that, dear friends, is excruciating. Likewise, if the avoidant begins to show up emotionally, the anxious partner must surrender their role as the perpetual victim. They must hold space for the avoidant's needs they've long judged as absent or non-existent. Shadow work demands that both parties stop outsourcing their missing pieces to the other. No more "you complete me" nonsense. You must complete yourself. And only from that place can you meet as equals. Real, raw, human equals. And what happens then? Well, sometimes the relationship cannot withstand the weight of this awakening. When two people finally see each other clearly, without projections, they may discover they are incompatible, that they were only ever bonded through their wounds. And if that happens, take heart. A relationship that led you back to yourself is never a failure. In fact, it may be the most successful love story you'll ever know. But if, by some grace, you both do the work, if you trudge through the muck and the mire, each facing your shadow, integrating what was lost, then, my friend, you will have built something rare, a love between two whole people, a love that does not cling or flee, a love that stands. So, the question is not, how do I fix my partner? The question is, am I willing to confront the parts of myself I've spent a lifetime hiding? And if the answer is yes, then I dare say you're already halfway home. Now, if you found yourself nodding along, perhaps it's time to linger a while. Subscribe, share your reflections below, and stay on this path. For shadow work is no place to travel alone. But with the right company, what discoveries await us. After all, the darkest places hold the brightest treasures.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.